So, what exactly happens to James Harden when everything is on the line? Let's take a deeper look at his Game 7 performances, because this is where the cracks in his legacy begin to show, and not just once, but consistently, across multiple teams and years. To start, it's important to understand that Harden has played in 7 Game 7s throughout his NBA career. In his first 3, he actually looked like the star he's always been. He averaged over 26 points per game, had a true shooting percentage over 55%, and got to the free throw line about 10 times per game. He wasn't flawless, but he was aggressive, effective, and still very much in control. But after 2020, everything changed. Harden's last 4 Game 7s, played with 4 different teams, have been disastrous. He's averaged just 13.8 points per game, shot an appalling 27% from the field, and has only been to the free throw line around 5 times per game. That's a complete collapse from his earlier performances. And more importantly, it's not just about numbers. It's about how invisible he becomes when his team needs him most. Let's go through a few key examples. In 2015, while with the Houston Rockets, Harden put up 45 points in a huge playoff win against Golden State. Impressive, right? Until you realize that in the very next elimination game, he had 12 turnovers, more than his total field goals, and shot 18% from the field. That kind of performance simply can't happen from your franchise player. Fast forward to 2017, Houston versus San Antonio in the second round. After a big Game 3 with 43 points, Harden followed it up in Game 6, facing elimination, by scoring just 10 points, committing 6 turnovers, and shooting under 20%. No fight. No leadership. Just another collapse. Move to 2022, Harden is now with the Philadelphia 76ers in a do-or-die Game 6 against the Miami Heat. The Sixers needed him to step up. Instead, just 11 points, 4 turnovers, and a passive 9 shot attempts. Despite shooting over 44% that night, he looked disengaged and unwilling to take control. And then came 2023, back in the playoffs with the Sixers, this time against the Boston Celtics. Harden dropped 45 in Game 1 of the series, but in the deciding Game 7, he vanished again, 9 points, 27% shooting, and just 2, 4, 8 from three-point range. Most recently in 2024, during his first season with the Los Angeles Clippers, it happened again. Tied 2-2 in the first round against Dallas, Harden followed it up with one of the worst back-to-back performances of his career. Just 7 points in Game 5 on 2 of 12 shooting, then 5 points in the elimination Game 6, with the same number of shot attempts as points. 0 for 6 from 3. The Clippers didn't even make it to a Game 7. And that's what makes this so troubling. It's not just 1 or 2 off nights. It's a pattern, a legacy-defining trend. Since 2020, Harden's numbers in elimination games have plummeted. He takes fewer shots, attacks the basket less often, and barely gets to the free throw line. And when you take away his free throws, you take away the very thing that made him an offensive genius. So now we have to ask why? Is this purely a mental block? A confidence issue? Fatigue? Or is it something deeper? Something structural to the way Harden plays and the way playoff basketball is officiated? That's what we'll unpack next, as we look at how changes in refereeing, age, and play style might explain this dramatic drop-off in the postseason. So far, we've walked through the numbers, the losses, and the disappearing acts. But now we need to ask a tougher, deeper question. Why is James Harden consistently terrible in elimination games? The obvious explanation people throw around is that Harden chokes under pressure, that the bright lights of Game 7s are too much for him. And sure, maybe there's a grain of truth in that. But honestly, that's an oversimplification. Harden isn't scared of big moments. He's had legendary playoff performances too. The truth is more complex and way more revealing. Let's start with one major factor: officiating. James Harden's scoring game has always relied heavily on getting to the free throw line. He doesn't beat you with freak athleticism or raw explosiveness. He beats you by manipulating space, drawing contact, and taking advantage of how referees whistle the game. In his prime, Harden led the league in free throw attempts for several seasons. And it worked. He was elite at creating contact and capitalizing on every small mistake defenders made. But in the playoffs, especially in Game 7s, the whistle changes. The referees tend to swallow their whistles in high-stakes games. They want players to decide the game, not foul calls. That means the same little bumps and reaches that sent Harden to the line in January, they get ignored in May. The result? Harden loses a core part of his scoring identity, and without those free throws, he becomes far less dangerous. Let's look at the numbers again. In Harden's first 3 Game 7s, he averaged 10 free throw attempts per game. He was still productive. But in his last 4 Game 7s, that number dropped to just 5 free throw attempts per game. That's a 50% decline, and for a player whose offensive rhythm revolves around drawing fouls, that's massive. Now combine that with another undeniable factor: age. James Harden is now 35 years old. He's not the same player who once routinely put up 50-point triple-doubles. He was never an elite athlete to begin with. He didn't dominate with speed or vertical leaping. He dominated with skill, timing, and intelligence. But as time goes on, even smart players lose a step. That quick burst to the rim isn't quite the same. The lift on his jump shot dips. His legs get heavier. And when that happens, your margin for error shrinks dramatically. We saw signs of this in his most recent playoff run with the Clippers. He wasn't attacking the basket the same way. He wasn't moving off the ball. And most notably, he wasn't demanding the rock in the final minutes of the game. For a player who built his career around being the guy, that kind of passiveness is alarming. Another element that's often overlooked is conditioning and fatigue. Harden has always logged heavy minutes, often carrying the full offensive burden for his teams throughout the regular season. That kind of wear and tear builds up, especially as he gets older. And when Game 7 rolls around, after 6 brutal, intense games, he simply looks gassed. He's slower, more hesitant, less aggressive. The player who could take over games in February is now just trying to survive in May. Add it all together, and you start to see the full picture. Harden's game is built for the regular season, where the pace is faster, the defense looser, and the officiating softer. But when the playoffs begin, when defenses tighten, refs let contact go, and games slow down, his style doesn't hold up. And as he's aged, the problem has only gotten worse. It's not that Harden forgot how to play. It's that the game changed and he didn't adjust. So where does that leave us now? What does the future look like for Harden and the Clippers? Is there still hope? Or are we watching the final chapters of a brilliant, but incomplete, career? At this point in James Harden's career, the question isn't just why he keeps coming up short. It's what now? He'll be turning 36 years old next season, and it's clear his best years are behind him. The explosive scoring, the MVP-caliber dominance, the back-to-back 50-point nights, that era is over. But what's most striking isn't the decline itself. It's the Clippers' apparent commitment to moving forward with Harden and the current core, despite everything we've seen.
Let's talk about that.
The Los Angeles Clippers are in a strange spot. They went all in on the Kawhi Leonard era, trading away a mountain of draft picks and future assets to build a team that could win now. But since 2019, the results have been, let's be honest, underwhelming. Kawhi, though brilliant when healthy, is chronically injured. Paul George has had his moments, but he hasn't consistently elevated the team. And now they've added Harden into the mix, hoping he could be the missing piece. Instead, the result was another early playoff exit. But here's the twist. Despite Harden's struggles, Clippers president Lawrence Frank reportedly still believes in this core. And that's not just words. There's serious talk of the Clippers re-signing Harden, potentially on a new 2-year deal that would align with Kawhi's contract. Insider Brian Windhorst put it best, the Clippers don't have many other options. They don't own their first-round picks for the next 5 years, and tearing it all down isn't really on the table. They're stuck. Harden might not be a championship-level second option anymore, but unless they want to hit reset and rebuild from scratch, they almost have to re-sign him. Now let's shift to Harden's legacy, because that's the heart of the conversation. There's no doubt that James Harden will be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. His offensive production has been historic. He led the league in scoring 3 times. He's one of the most efficient volume scorers the NBA has ever seen. He changed the game with his footwork, his stepbacks, and his ability to manipulate defenders and referees alike. But championships matter. And so do playoff performances. And that's where the hole in Harden's resume grows wider every year. He's never made it to the NBA Finals as the primary star. He's never won a championship. And when we look at his playoff resume, especially in elimination games, it's filled with underwhelming stat lines, early exits, and far too many passive performances, when his teams needed him most. This is why many basketball fans and analysts place Dwayne Wade above Harden in the all-time shooting guard rankings. Wade had the rings, the finals MVP, the big moments. Harden had the numbers, but not the postseason magic. And yet, it's important to be fair. Harden isn't just some regular star who flamed out. He redefined offensive basketball in the modern era. He made efficiency cool. He showed how free throws could be weaponized. He dragged underwhelming rosters to 50-plus wins. He delivered iconic regular seasons that will be studied and remembered for decades. But greatness in the NBA is measured differently. We don't just remember who put up numbers. We remember who delivered when it mattered most. And in that category, Harden will always be surrounded by question marks. Unless something miraculous happens, unless Harden reinvents himself or somehow leads the Clippers on a deep playoff run in the twilight of his career, his legacy is largely set. He'll go down as one of the most gifted scorers of all time. A genius with the ball in his hands. A regular season force. But also, a player whose playoff story never quite matched the rest of the script. So now it's your turn. Do you think Harden is unfairly criticized? Or do you believe his postseason failures define him more than anything else? Is his legacy underappreciated, or exactly what it deserves to be? Let us know in the comments. And until next time, I'm your host, signing off.